we can all bring the drop the drawbridge and bring it up together. I like that better than the cut because the cut is violent.
Maybe
the drawbridge, you know, but
we're drawbridging these people
up and down, baby. Life as a mom, entrepreneur, wife, friend, and human is a lot. Join me, Katie Jacobs.
And me, Brandy Chandler, every Thursday as we have unfiltered, hilarious, and relatable conversations about the ups, the downs, and the chaos of it all.
Pour a glass and pull up a seat.
Because you're always welcome at our table. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
You know, this is a big topic, so I'm a little nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a hard topic.
We today are going to take on cutting people off. So welcome to She Did What?
We have not cut you off.
We have not cut you off.
We love you. You're welcome at our table.
Always. Unless you act a fool.
Then we will cut you off.
Brandy, I can just see you chopping.
I am not afraid to cut people off, and I've always been that way. How about you?
I've gotten better about it as I've gotten older, and I've had to protect my peace.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I want to start this with this wonderful anecdote. Can I kick it off? Do you mind?
Kick it.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to back it up a little bit because this sort of goes back to our friendship episode. I was at market and I was in a showroom and this woman and I kind of like, she was like, you look so cool. And I was like, no, you look so cool. And then
You're the coolest.
Like, it was just a moment where we were just like, oh, like vibing, you know, and I'm a weirdo. Right. So I saw her in a post from Atlanta Apparel Mart and I clicked on, and they had tagged her. So I clicked on her and then I swiped up on her. I don't know if that's the right term. I slid into her DMs. I was like, oh my gosh, do you remember me from this showroom? We said hey to each other. I loved your fit. You loved mine. And she was like, oh my gosh. So we have been like chatting on Instagram ever since. And she's been listening. And she said to me, we had decided that day we were going to record cutting people off. And she had messaged me an hour later saying, I really wish you would do an episode about cutting people off.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. It was written in the stars. And then, to take it a step further, she left me the most incredible anecdote that I wanted to start this episode with. So going back to friendship, just being a weirdo and like, just start a friendship, you know? But she said, people can have the capacity, but lack the capability to be what you need from them. And that blew my mind. Right? Because we all have the capacity to be the sort of person someone else might want or expect from us, but we might not have the capability to fulfill that need that they have. Now, I think when we talk about cutting people off, there are two segments of this sort of need, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brandy, or if you see it differently, but I almost see there's like this, okay, this is like a really toxic situation and I need to cut it off, or I just need a minute to breathe.
Oh, yes.
And this friend said she had gone back and picked her friend back up or whatever the situation she was in. She's like, I went back and got her, but I needed a minute.
Yeah. I mean, people change, people's circumstances change, and just about the capabilities part of the thing she sent you. Just because someone can't necessarily be a good friend to you in the moment doesn't mean they're a bad person. Maybe they're having a rough time, you know? So there's a lot that goes into this.
Of course.
But I think at the end of the day, you have to protect yourself and your family. And you only have so much that you are capable of dealing with and, you know, producing and putting out as well. So there are a lot of factors moving in these situations.
Yeah. I've looked into this a lot over the years because I just think I have found myself in a couple of situations. And one situation I can speak to is with a family member that he'll never listen to my brother.
He might be our YouTube fan base.
No, he's not. We're going through a rough time right now. And I had to, it was not a good space. And cutting off a family member is very difficult because, especially because I feel a bit like I've told my kids, like, you guys stick together. You three brothers, my sons, are all like blood is thicker than water. Y'all are like gonna be the best of friends till the day you die, and no one is gonna love you the way your brother loves you. So I feel, I guess, a bit like a hypocrite, but also our relationship had gotten so bad, and the situation had gotten so toxic that it wasn't even a choice. I was so upset every time we communicated that I was not right the whole day. And then my husband's looking at me going, you're not like being yourself at all day long. And maybe the next day or a week, you just seem depressed. And that really hit me. It was like, I have to make a choice here about how I'm going to show up for the people that are standing in front of me, and specifically my children. And my husband, but like really my children can't have a mom who's disconnected.
Yeah, I can really identify with that situation in particular because my sibling and I are no longer close. And I tell my children the same thing. I'm always like, you guys have each other. That's all you know you have. That's all you know you can depend on. And yes, I feel like a hypocrite because here I am not in a close relationship with my brother. But... There's always a big butt hanging out in the room.
Right.
I gave it my all for 40 years, and it was 40 years of a mostly one-sided relationship.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
I wasn't capable of performing my side anymore because I was the more giving side. And I still love him. I would still be open to a different kind of relationship in the future. But yeah, I guess we tell our children in hopes that it will work out in the best ways for them, and they will have each other and be able to depend on each other and be in a mutual, loving, caring relationship.
Yeah, I don't, we talk about in the B word episode, right? Like the little B, because I think in relationships, it can't always be one person, doing the most and the other person expecting the other person to do the most.
Yeah.
And that was with my brother. I just was in the situation where I felt like I was this constant therapy support. And it was, and then really the one time, and when I was like, this is not right. The one time, like I really needed to lean into him. He was like, this isn't my problem.
Yeah.
And that for me was eye-opening. It was very much, I remember exactly where I was when it happened, and a switch went off and I just started sobbing. I mean, I was like uncontrollably sobbing. I was walking down the street pushing Mac in the stroller. He was asleep and I couldn't stop crying. And I was just like, the realization had hit me that this had been one-sided for so long.
Oh, Katie, that's exactly how I felt.
Oh, really?
I was always the back seat.
Oh,
that's so weird.
That is weird.
We've never talked about this before.
And it's with our brothers.
I know.
So did you have an aha moment like that?
Kind of. I mean, mine was tied up because I worked with my brother.
Yeah.
Mine was tied up in all of that mess too. But I was just like, you know what? I'm always the back seat. I'm always the opinion that gets pushed to the side. There were a lot of circumstances where I would get told something to do, but no one would say, hey, did you have something already planned very important to you that you needed to do, like with your children?
Right.
So that really, there was a moment where I was supposed to take my youngest child to a lesson and they wanted me to do something else. And no one asked, did you have something extremely important to you planned for this afternoon?
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. So yeah, there was kind of a distinct moment.
Yeah. You just knew.
But it was a building to that moment.
Yeah. And I think mine had been building, but I didn't know the way that it was building.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
Just suddenly I was like, fuck this. Like, I don't want to deal with this shit anymore.
Man.
I just was so
exactly how
I was just so like, I need you one time.
Yeah.
And and he has struggled with addiction, and it has been, and addicts can be very self-absorbed, selfish people. And it's just been, my whole life has been worrying about him, my whole life. And he's my older sibling.
Yeah.
And it just became like, have you ever worried about me?
Yeah.
Like ever once? And like, I'm telling you, I'm not in a good place. And his response is, well, I'm in a worse place. Well, you're always in a worse place.
And we can both be in a bad place at
but
the same time.
Can I ever have my moment, to struggle?
Yeah.
Like I really, and I think I'm I don't know. I like to be strong for the people around me. I really feel that way, but I'm finding more and more as I'm getting older, it's really important to be vulnerable and show that you're not superwoman and you can't handle everything all the time, and you're not great at everything all the time. And that there's a very human element of just, I need someone to lean on right now.
Yeah.
And I found that when I ask for it, people are so giving of that. So I'm starting to ask more of it, I think, and I think that was a moment where I asked him of it and he just couldn't deliver.
Yeah.
So there's that, going back to it, there is that having the capacity, but not the capability. He didn't have the capability to be there for me.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk for a year. And then when we did talk, it was really, really bad again. And it was not healthy at all. And I blocked him.
Yeah.
It was just these rants going on me. And I just hit block. I said, I can't do it,
Yeah.
which is difficult. It's difficult to cut, like for me, that is difficult to just like cut off my brother.
And especially when it's family.
Right.
That is another level.
But it had been days of like me being in a depression over like this communication that was so toxic.
Well, and I think that's a great sign that something needs to change.
Yeah.
When, one contact in 10 minutes affects you for days down the road.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good indicator. And I also want to say, especially since we're talking about family, I am very open to changing my mind. Like, this kind of is a cut for now, but I hope it's not forever.
Same.
But the cut will stay in place until I feel like it's, a safe place for my family and I to move forward and put that wall back down.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to know you can change your mind. I mean, you have to make these decisions with all the information that you have at this moment. Information changes.
Absolutely.
So, 3 years from now, we might all be going on vacation together.
I know. Well, and my brother and I were very, very best friends. Like, I mean, even going back just a few years ago, but COVID really hit him hard. It hit, it changed everybody. And so he went through a divorce and that was very, very difficult for him. And anyway, but we were super close. I say all that to say we were very, very close. I'm hopeful that we will get back to that. It's going to take a lot of healing. And I think he's just got to be in a better place for us too. There's this wonderful, Glennan Doyle said this when she got into her relationship with Abby Wambach. I think I'm saying her name right, Abby Wambach. Glennan Doyle was talking about having the conversation with her parents about getting a divorce and then falling in love with a woman and what that was going to look like for her family. And she gave this beautiful metaphor. She said, this is my castle and this is my kingdom and there is a moat around it. And I will put the drawbridge down if you will cross with love. You cannot cross with any sort of animosity and you cannot cross with any questioning. You have to come across with love. And if you can't, my drawbridge goes right back up.
Yeah.
And I love that visual. For me, it's been like, am I willing to put my drawbridge down and let this person pass over into the sanctity of my kingdom, of the thing that I've built, of my place of respite, which is my home, my family. And I think that's important to consider.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example. And especially with the drawbridge, because it can come down and up as needed.
It can, as needed, and should, as needed.
Yeah.
Because life is fluid and it's lived in the gray and it's not lived in the black and white.
Yeah.
Self-preservation, I think in our situations we're talking about kind of an extreme. Like this would be more of an extreme cutting off, like not speaking to a fan, like, my brother for a year. That feels extreme. But I think there's like am I always fighting or flighting?
Yes.
What is my nervous system response to this person?
Mm-hmm.
Is it bringing joy or is it bringing trepidation?
Yeah.
And I think those are really important factors to consider if you're in any sort of relationship where, oh God, the phone rings and you feel.
Yeah. And I struggled with that because I think there is a difference in feeling that fight or flight constantly. But sometimes you may feel it for a season. Sometimes the other party may be going through something really tough and it's hard for you to deal with, but we're going to get over this in a not long period of time.
Right.
But when we're coming into back-to-back months, years, decades, then this is not good for you. You can't extend this nervous system fight or flight into years, because that's what I did. And it became very, very unhealthy for me and my family.
This episode is sponsored by me, Katie, and my gorgeous retail shop, Cheeky Peach. Since 2010, Cheeky Peach Boutique has been styling the stories of women not only right here in Athens, Georgia, in our beautiful downtown location, but also all over the country. Through the years, Cheeky has built a notorious reputation for our obsession with customer styling and experience. From in-store personal styling sessions that are absolutely free to our personal styling services via Instagram, you are no longer flying solo in your fashion journey. We're the Southeast's largest independent retailer of free people and carry other fantastic brands like Dolce Vita and Betsy Pitter Designs. Mention the podcast for 10% off your next order this summer. Offer ends July 31st and is one use per customer. Visit us online at shopcheekypeach.com to set up a styling session and learn more, or follow us on Instagram at Cheeky Peach to shop our weekly try-ons. Or you can DM us with all your styling needs. Cheeky Peach, style for your story. Well, and I think it has such an effect that you think maybe it's just affecting you, but the ripple is so much bigger.
Yeah.
It affects everything around you.
And it's so easy to turn this into, I just need to be there for them. I just need to be more this, that, and the other. But yeah, sometimes when you take a look back, maybe it's not what you're lacking.
Sure.
And it's a hard thing. It takes a lot of thought and reflection.
And introspection. I mean, here's the flip side of this coin. I think you have to be able to look inside and say, have I done everything I can do here to be the best? Have I shown up in the best way possible? And then like the capacity and the capability question.
Yeah. And we said we weren't going to talk about this. We X'd it. But that's kind of what I was talking about, defining your role. If you know your role, I'm the sister here. It's my job. 1, 2, 3. These are what I think a sister could do. If you know you did your role and it's still not working, maybe it's not your problem.
Yeah.
And if it's affecting you this negatively, maybe it's time for you to bring your bridge up.
Oh, so true.
So that was the role thing I was getting after.
Yeah.
Look at us.
Look at us.
Our brains are working.
We're just so good at our jobs.
So I think it's important to reflect and know your role so you can properly evaluate, am I performing my role? Maybe I was doing a bad job. And once I know my role, I was like, oh yeah, that was me.
Right. I mean, listen, everybody, I think taking ownership and accountability over your part in things is detrimental to this, because if you look and you're like, oh, wait.
Yeah. So that's really a good first kind of step.
Yeah. Well, I would just do an analysis, right?
Yeah.
If you're in the situation, because I'm sure some of our listeners are in a situation, be it a family member or a friend, where they're like, yeah, y'all are hitting some chords with me. All right. Good.
Oh, it's so nice.
So nice. We can all just cut people off together. No, I like, we can all bring the drop the drawbridge and bring it up together. I like that better than the cut, because the cut is violent.
Maybe
the drawbridge.
Yeah.
But
we're drawbridging these people.
Up and down, baby. I think it's important to think about, okay, yes, what are they doing wrong? But also, have I played any part in not doing wrong? What is their capability here? Am I asking too much? Am I thinking that this situation, this relationship is something that they're not thinking it is? Like, is this somebody who's like just a good time friend? And I'm thinking they're going to be like, holding all of my secrets near and dear to the heart. And they're not capable of doing that because they're the feel good. They're the fun time friend. They're the party friend, you know?
Yeah.
And sort of knowing what box people fit into, I think is important too, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I've had relationships where I didn't realize I was someone's friend better than I thought I was. Like they were really thinking I was a good friend. I thought we were just like a ballpark acquaintance.
Oh,
you know?
Can you talk about that more? That's
Well, I mean, it's just sometimes, a friend will tell you something or include you in something and you're like, oh, wow, we're much better. Like you think this relationship is much closer than I have been thinking. And that's not a bad thing. Or but maybe then I want to like step it up a little bit. It's right. Like, I need to up my game. You know, if you're really into this.
Right. So were they taking a leap with you emotionally?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they just wanted to up the ante.
I know. But I mean, it's an important thing to kind of
Brandy's
have
like,
your ear.
God, I have my 3 friends. I don't need any more.
But I think that's important to, keep your ears open to realize maybe somebody needs you.
Oh, that's, I mean, that's,
it's kind of the opposite of how we started out.
Okay. But what if someone's like, okay. So what if someone's saying like, I need you and you're not capable of that?
You gotta set those boundaries.
Set those boundaries, baby.
Get that no out.
Yeah. Because I think if I had anybody right now with the mental state I'm in, with everything going on, come up and be like, hey, I need to I don't really know you so well, but I really need to emotionally dump on you. I'd be like, I'm not capable.
Yeah.
I would just be like, listen, dude, I'm so sorry you're going through that, but I don't.
Yeah. Or be like, I can listen, but
I don't even know if I can do that right now. Like I don't have the capacity or the capability.
I think it would be important to be honest with that person in that circumstance because you want them to find someone who can help them,
Oh my gosh, of course. Of course. Not that this would ever happen. Not that someone would just come up off this. This is not such an obscure.
This is not something we're struggling with daily.
I like the idea of what would my life be like if I made this cut. And what it would be like if I didn't.
And those are some of the questions that I've picked up from the Emily P. Freeman books and podcasts. That's something she has a list of 10 questions specifically to always ask yourself when making a decision. But these are always like, what would my life be like with? What would my life be like without? Who would be affected with? Who would be affected without? I mean, those are such simple questions, but so very important and helpful.
Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. And I think going back to everybody's always on the internet, right? And it gets so convoluted and so overcomplicated because everyone's trying to sell you some new system or way of doing things. And really, it's just not that hard. I mean, we talked about the pro-con list. It's like, it's just not that hard. Or just listening to your heart, and your intuition. Am I just I just need a little space.
I think your intuition is very important in these things.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think, if you're spiritual, I feel like my intuition is God's voice telling me what to do. And I feel like other people could, feel like it's whatever spiritual leader they are drawn to guiding them. So I feel like that's very important. Those are not things to be ignored. You got to listen to your gut.
Yeah, absolutely. You pose the question, do you have a conversation to cut or do you just silently cut?
I feel like that's very specific to circumstances. So I feel like it's very circumstantial whether you do that conversation cut or silent cut. Like, is this somebody you potentially would want to have a relationship in the future? But maybe if it's just a mom friend you met at school and 6 months into the friendship, you're like, well, this is not my vibe. You can kind of just let that drift off without ever, letting her know I'm just not that into you.
Right.
What do you think?
With my brother, I said, I have to block you now because you won't stop with this. And it's too painful. And however I said it, I was just like, I'm sorry. I'm hitting stop. I'm hitting hard stop here. And I agree. I think with some people, if it's just not a friendship that's serving you and maybe it's a newer one. Yeah. I mean, just, you can kind of drift off, You know,
Yeah.
you don't always have to answer the text 5 minutes after it comes through or
Yeah.
whatever. Maybe just sort of
Just a little soft cut.
let it fall off, you know, let it fall away.
Do you lean towards one or the other?
I don't think so.
I lean
I don't
towards
do this enough.
non-confrontation. Oh, maybe I'm doing this too much.
You're like,
I lean towards non-confrontation, but
I don't see, I have a problem with the word confrontation because I think oftentimes people misconstrue being direct with being confrontational. I'm a very direct person. I don't like to not know where I stand. Therefore, I don't want someone else to not know where they stand with me. However, I think sometimes like with a friendship or whatever, if I'm just feeling like, you know, like if something happened or there was a dramatic moment, it's like, if I need a breather, I'm just going to take a step back.
yeah,
Like
and that's what I mean.
So my belief is if it's a friendship and it's like, I don't know. I've never really had any situation where I was like, hey, I need to take a step back. Like generally, I think if it's a friendship thing, it's like, whoa, we're like, whatever. There was a drama and we both need a minute, you know, to breathe.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like, sometimes I'm just not vibing with people. So I just kind of disappear for a few.
You are so weird. Sometimes I'm just not vibing. The vibes are off.
Feeling it.
How often are you doing this?
I don't know.
I'm worried like one day I'm going to come in, the equipment's going to be gone.
No, you would know.
Brandy is ridden off into there's like, I walk into my office and you're recording with somebody else. I'm like, oh, wow.
It's the new Katie. I do have another friend named Katie.
Her name's Kylie. You've been replaced.
Her name's KJ.
That's my name. Okay, I like this idea of getting some outside help.
Oh, man. I had a situation a year ago. We all know about it. It's very public now. It was the best. And something just led me. I was like, I need to talk to someone that doesn't know me that well, doesn't know the other party that well, and can just say, this is insane, or this is life, you got to deal with it, or, you know, this isn't a big deal. And that's exactly what happened. And they really gave me very little advice. But being in that place of a complete third party, not invested in either of us, was so helpful. And just talking it out to someone, you know, where you have to tell them everything, like they know nothing.
Yeah.
Because sometimes then you might pick up and note some details from the other party that you might not be paying attention to when you're only thinking about yourself. So it's just a helpful discovery process, I think.
I also think sometimes when you say it out loud, you're like, have you ever been like telling someone what's going on? And then you're like, wow, this shit is really fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, oh, when I say it out loud and I'm looking at the person's reaction, they're like horrified.
I've been there.
It's like, oh, wait, that's bad. Like really bad.
Well, one day when we first started this, you were like, I feel like I'm in the toughest time of my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, Katie, you are.
Yeah, dum-dum. Dodo bird.
And you were like, oh, okay. Thanks for validating.
It was good validation.
I'm like, yeah, you are.
I had a therapist one time tell me, you're in a game of tug of war with this person. It was a family member, a different family member.
Those family members.
And he said to me, you don't realize this, but you have an option. And that is just to drop the rope.
Go.
Drop the rope. And that resonated so deeply with me. And it has been something I have gone back to over and over and over again. Drop the rope.
I'm definitely a rope dropper.
You know? And all this stuff, like, my husband's in this political campaign and this person he's running against is like going in all these online forums and like spreading lies. It is the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go clear this up. And then I'm just like, drop the rope, Katie.
Yeah. Well, no response is a big response.
Drop the rope. You know, I don't have to fight with these nitwits. I don't have to fight with these goofballs.
And sometimes that's all the peace you need. You know, sometimes you don't need a conversation or anything like that. You need to just drop it and move on. And then one day, pick it back up. That's fine.
And it's so much more peaceful.
Yes.
It's preserving your peace.
Well, yes, it's so much more
energy.
peaceful for you because that's what you've run out of. Yeah. You need that. I'm a big drop that rope.
Drop that
Drop
rope,
it.
baby.
Maybe we should get a hat that says drop the rope.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it too.
Merch coming.
Merch it up. Merch it up. The price of cutting someone off is important.
Yeah, you really got to think about that. You know, because there are some relationships you might not be willing to fully cut off. Maybe you make some strong boundaries, but you still keep that phone line open.
Yeah. What is the toll? What is the potential fallout of this decision?
Yeah.
And is it something I can't live without it?
And
you know,
who
without
all's affected, you know, I've hung on to some relationships for my children.
Oh,
you know,
of course.
for them to continue their relationships, and things like that really go into it.
I think it's really the game changer for me is in that question is really, will it affect my children? Because my husband and I, like, whatever, we're going to be all right.
Yeah.
But how it'll affect my kids is definitely something that weighs heavily on the decision-making process. Now, you know, I can hang on to anything if it's beneficial to them. Like, I will make it work. I will gorilla glue the hell out of a relationship just if it's important to my children.
Yeah.
You know, but my brother lives, you know, 1,500 miles away. Yeah. So it's not like,
they're not highly affected.
No, not at all. They're not going from seeing him to not seeing him. Like, they were seeing him once a year. And, you know, and they don't really, it doesn't even really register because it's been a while since they've seen him, you know, a couple years. So, all right. So let me ask you this then. What happens if you're cutting out a family member and your children, it's like for their benefit and they need to be made aware of it?
Well, that's what I was about to lead into that. I'm going through, my daughter's a teenager now, so she's learning sometimes people make some decisions I'm not fully on board with. So how do I give a little distance? Like, I don't want to participate in that.
Wow.
So sometimes you have to just step back for a minute, let them do what they've made their decision to do.
Right.
Without totally cutting them off. But, you know, sometimes you need a distancing.
Are you advising her in that, or is she learning it sort of trial and error?
She was about to hard cut somebody out.
Ooh, baby.
I was
like mother, like daughter.
The
apple does not fall far.
There for it. And I was like,
she's like, done.
Pumpkin, they're going to be over this in a week. And you're going to want to be their friend again. So just give them some space to live their life, even if you're not in full accordance.
Right.
And then when they're ready, y'all can go to Ulta again. You know?
Aww.
So I've been walking her through Ulta, Sephora, whatever. Walking her through that. But I think it's important for them to see us as parents navigating this. And I think it's important to talk to them, you know, Uncle so-and-so was giving me a hard time, stressing me out. I got to take a minute. You know, I still love him. He's still your uncle.
Yeah.
But we're just going to take a minute.
We had a really awkward moment at Easter where my brother called. My mom was sitting there. My mom called him, I don't know, and put my oldest son on the phone. And I could tell he was reading the room. He was reading the energy. And he was like, something's going on. And at that point, I was like, he might be getting close to the point where I need to have that conversation with him, where he deserves to hear that conversation. And the weight of it is, okay, the pro is mommy is better without the conversations that have been transpiring. I'm not talking about how I would talk to him. I'm just saying, like, the pro of it is, like, for him, that I'm a better mom. I'm not depressed. I'm not down in the dumps. I'm not crying. I'm more present and there for him without this relationship.
Yes.
So the benefit does outweigh. Now, I always want him to have a relationship with my brother. He adores him, but I don't know how to facilitate that with the space my brother is in right now. Like, he's not in a healthy enough space.
And so that's a whole element. Like, my brother's in a fine space, so my kids kind of have a relationship with him that doesn't involve me, and I'm fine with that.
Right.
They are not in danger. They are not, you know.
Yeah.
Ours is more of personality, relationship dynamic situation between the two of us. So I think that's a circumstantial thing.
Sure.
You know, if it's safe for your kids to be involved, I personally don't have a problem with my children having a relationship kind of separate from ours. And they do stuff and they visit and they hang out.
It's an important distinction.
I think it's a case by case situation. But yeah, yours are getting old enough. You know, the little ones, they don't.
Yeah, the little ones are like, they don't have that. They don't have the understanding of time. And yeah. What advice would you give to someone who's really like in the trenches of it? Because we've maybe a younger person, and I'm not talking about a teenager who's like, I'm talking about someone who's really maybe, I remember being in my 20s and having to make some choices around this. And it felt it was overwhelming and very heavy and very difficult. And it felt like it was just taking up all my headspace to sort through this. And what would you say to that listener? What advice would you give them?
I think just from the personal experiences I've had in this department, and a lot of them recently, I think you have to protect your own peace, because that takes such a toll on you. It eats at your physical well-being, your mental well-being, your emotional well-being. Like, it really, really drains you. So you've got to take that into account and work from there. And you have to do, like you were talking about, integrity work and some past episodes. You've got to know what you stand up for and what you want to be a part of and what you believe in. And if relationships aren't serving that, maybe it's time to do some distance and really evaluate hard cut, soft cut, bridge up forever, bridge potentially coming back down at some point. It just takes a lot of reflection and thought, but it's worth it to put that time into it and to make that decision with those thoughts in mind. And also with an open hand and an open mind that things can change.
I remember being in my 20s and realizing some of my friends from college weren't real, like, lifelong friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wait. And I'm sure a lot of people are like,
that's totally a thing.
Okay, this was real fun.
Especially when you're young. You have like summer camp, like even if you're a counselor, you have your counselor friends. And my life is still like that. You know, I have ballpark friends, I have school friends, I have real friends that I'm, want to go hang out with all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of life. You gotta figure that stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say just do that work of like, does the good in this relationship outweigh the bad? Am I expecting too much from the relationship? Can they not deliver on the expectation? Am I not able to deliver on the expectation? Is there a conversation that needs to happen? Or is this just, can we just dwindle this thing off?
Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I had a friend, she was a college friend, and we just like could not get it together after we graduated. Yeah. I mean, she just infuriated me all the time.
Well, your whole circumstances are different after you leave school.
She got right into a really successful career. I was really floundering. And then when I finally opened my store, she came in with her family on a game day. And I guess it was the first time I ever left my store. I remember this. I went to let my dog out, and my employee called me and said, "Do you know this person?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, of course I do." And they said, "Well, they came in and just dogged everything in the store. We're like, ew, this is so ugly. Ew, this, ew, that." And I was like, and that was a hard cut. I was like, I'm done. I am done. Like, for me, that was it. It was just kind of the nail in the coffin of the relationship.
Person you are in college.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes just lives in college.
Yeah. They're in college mode.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
a true thing. And I think that's true for many people. You're just in a weird spot. You're figuring everything out.
Right.
You don't know anything.
Mm-hmm. And
Sometimes
everyone's
you just
very,
leave that
I think in your
person
early 20s, that speaks to early, everyone's just very self-involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes it's good just to, but again, going back to some of our listeners who are a little younger, I'm sure some of them are starting to experience that drawbridge moment of, okay, where do I stand with this?
Well, even from high school,
Sure.
it's weird, especially if you move away from college, going back home to all your friends from home. Like, you're having way different experiences, growing in different directions. And sometimes those friendships just don't really last. You may still be friendly, but you're not
cordial.
Yeah. In constant contact.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Well, I hope this was helpful. This was a nice conversation for us.
I feel like you haven't cut as many people off as you let on.
Oh, I've cut a lot.
Oh, okay.
Silently.
If you all want to discuss this more, hop into our DMs, leave us a voicemail, shoot us a text. We get a lot of texts after our episodes drop.
We love feedback.
We love the feedback. Thank you for following along. Please shoot us a message, leave us a voicemail, and review us
on your podcast platform.
Yep.
Apple, Spotify.
Hop into that YouTube.
I know Amazon Music. I forget that one a lot.
Yes. And we are going to be launching our Patreon.
Yes.
So
exciting.
Very, very soon. Very excited.
Stay tuned.
Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. So follow us on Instagram for all that info.
I know.
And we love y'all.
We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Snip, snip.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and can't wait to share another episode with you next Thursday.
Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. To keep up with the latest, make sure to follow us on Instagram at podcast She Did What. We'll be sharing updates, behind the scenes, and announcements you won't want to miss.
And if there's anything you'd like to share with us, whether it be a personal story or feedback on our episodes, you can leave us a voicemail at 762-499-2201 or head over to our website, shedidwhatpodcast.com. Also, feel free to leave us a review down below. We'd love to know what you think.
She Did What is hosted by us, Brandy Chandler and Katie Jacobs, and produced by Studio D Podcast Production.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next Thursday. And remember, it isn't always easy, but it sure as hell can be entertaining.